Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the panel on Trans-Pacific collaboration. I'm very pleased to be here. As I said earlier, it's a really fantastic crowd. I think one thing I've really noticed is the passion of everyone, regardless of whether you're a company that's been in Hong Kong for 100 years or a startup that started last Tuesday. There's just a real passion and dedication to the Canada-Hong Kong relationship that's really encouraging to see. Rather than me introduce my three esteemed panelists, what I'd like to do first is start and ask you to each briefly introduce yourself and a little bit about your organization, but very briefly. And Margaret, I'll start with you.
Okay. I'm Margaret Fong. I'm the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council. We are a statutory body with just one aim. The aim is to create opportunities for all Hong Kong-based companies with companies around the world. And so we are here to help. We are a resource, we are a partner, and many of our services are free. So please come and find us.
John.
Thank you, Charles. I suppose I'm a personal embodiment of the Canada-Hong Kong Connect. I'm originally from Ottawa, Canada's capital. I've been in the city now for about 25 years. The journey was via London, Jakarta, Paris, and finally Hong Kong. Delighted to be here. I'm the chief executive of Jardine Matheson. Jardines is an investment company based in Asia. We have one international business, Mandarin Oriental Luxury Hotel Group. Apart from that, we are very firmly in the region with investments from Beijing through to Jakarta, businesses from real estate, including this building in which we're sitting in, through to retail, automotive, financial services. Excellent to be here, Charles.
Thank you. And Johnny.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Charles. My name is Johnny Chen. I'm a founder and chairman of Titan Works Limited. Founded the company 25 years ago. We focus in private equities. For the past couple of years, we focus in startups, entrepreneurships, anything related to technologies. And from Hong Kong company, bring them overseas. And recently, we are trying to introduce and invite a lot of companies that we have invested all over the world to come to Hong Kong and to this region. And so far, it has been a very successful journey, and we're looking forward to continue to work with everyone here. Thanks.
Thank you. First off, I've had a number of people ask what this panel is about. So first, I'd like to hear from each of you. What does Trans-Pacific collaboration mean to you? John.
I think it's very much a business-to-business, people-to-people concept. I think in terms of globalization has been a big topic for the past decade and well beyond that. I think today Trans-Pacific means actually figuring out where the next trade and investment ideas are going to come from. It is that simple. And I think familiarization, people coming from, in this case, Canada to the region, coming to Hong Kong, using Hong Kong as the base to go either to the mainland or to Southeast Asia. This is Trans-Pacific.
Margaret.
Completely agree with John is saying. And I think for us, people think about Hong Kong and then they think about, okay, you're a gateway to mainland China. Yes, we've been doing this for almost 200 years, but we are so much more than that. And I think John is completely right that when you think about Hong Kong, when we think about Trans-Pacific, it's all of the Pacific Ocean, both sides of it. So we are trying to link up both sides via Hong Kong, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. Hong Kong is the place because we share a lot of common values. We have a lot of Canadians in Hong Kong, and we have long social and economic ties. The fact that we have had an office in Toronto, one of our 51 offices around the world, for over 40 years, speaks of the long relationship we have with Canada. And we feel that now is the time when there are so much uncertainty in the world that you must try to find a place or a region that will have definite growth potentials, and find a partner that you can work with, that you understand how the regime works, you understand that there is fair play every step of the way, and this is what Hong Kong wants to be in this Trans-Pacific collaboration.
Johnny.
Well, John and Margaret have covered everything. But to be fair, recent years, I think the Hong Kong governments have emphasized on building this northern metropolis. I think this is a very innovative areas that we can introduce to the world. This is going to be a new engine for Hong Kong in years to come. So I think this is the part that using this area together with the GBA, the Greater Bay Area, this is something that not only from Hong Kong level, even from a China perspective, this is going to be a fast-growing regions that we can attract a lot of people coming in through this area to expand their business, in the region to ASEAN. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm going to sort of dial it back and go really back to basics. I think one question that some people in the room and probably a lot of people who are watching online is, what's it like to live in Hong Kong? So, Johnny.
Wow. I was born here. Grew up here, but in fact, a bit of background story. I studied in Toronto for over a decade. So I can't make a comparisons, but living in Hong Kong is definitely very international. One thing that I always like to mention is the cuisines, the foods, everything. We get any food, any type of international food that you want to try, you can find it somewhere in Hong Kong. And that's something that I can't find it anywhere in the world. And the other part is, I think, is the transparency. People are very diverse, at the same time very willing to accept new things. And that is something that I find that living in Hong Kong is giving me a lot of joy and pride and also sense of security, and very safe living in Hong Kong. And recently I've been traveling around different places from Europe to certain countries. I find that Hong Kong, I can be very, very comfortable walking around in the middle of the night. I was recently in Italy and speaking to a local friend. The first thing he pointed at my watch, why are you wearing this watch walking over Milan? And I was like, because it's only a watch. It's like, no, don't do that. Then realize, well, at Hong Kong, I have no problem with that. So I think safety is one thing that I feel very happy to be here.
Thank you. Margaret.
Well, I grew up in Hong Kong. I've spent some years overseas working and studying. But I think for me, Hong Kong is not just a place that is full of opportunities. People are always rushing around. I remember when I was studying in UK, I was just going to the supermarket, and my fellow classmates just stopped me and said, "Oh, where are you rushing to?" I said, "No, I'm just going to get my groceries." "Why are you walking so fast?" I said, "That's actually slow by Hong Kong standards." So that is very much Hong Kong, the vitality, the dynamism, and also that Hong Kong is fun. I think in these 20 years or so, we've added so much more in terms of the cultural and sports offerings. So we now have two really world-class museums, M+ Palace Museum and the Museum of Art. The revamped one is really good too, so if you haven't checked it out, please do. And also we have all the sports, the rugby, the tennis, the everything. We don't quite have the hockey as much here as in Canada. I know we have two teams, not quite up to your level by a long stretch, but we have that too. So I think for me, Hong Kong is a place where you can get into a car, 15 minutes, you can either go to a country park, to a beach, to fine dining, to a hole in the wall, good food, shopping, everything. And that is, I think, Hong Kong safe, efficient, and also a lot of fun, which is very important when you are working hard.
Your fast-paced comment reminds me of what someone said to me a first week in Hong Kong. They said, it's the land of when you get in the elevator, everyone rushes to push the closed door button.
I'm one of them.
I think you might have been the one who told me that story, Margaret. John.
For me, I initially came to Hong Kong invited by a friend, and what I found in the city, sort of, I suppose now a couple of decades ago, was what continues to attract me to the city. I would break it down into a few parts. First, I would say that Hong Kong is almost a village masquerading as a big city. Clearly, you look around Central, you look across the harbor, and we're a city of I suppose, 7.5 million people in one of the most densely packed pieces of real estate across the world. And yet at the same time, and maybe because of that density, the community of Hong Kong is probably one of the most fluid I've come across. I mean, I've lived, as I said, in London and Paris and Toronto, and each of these are great cities, but it takes time, both as a business person and personally, to build the communities that you need to thrive. Hong Kong makes that process much, much more fluid, more effective, more immediate. I suspect recently arriving in Hong Kong, you feel that as compared with perhaps other places. So it's the sense of fluidity, of being able to meet really interesting, dynamic, ambitious people on an ongoing basis. I would say equally, to Margaret's earlier point, the dynamism of the city. The Asian region continues to be absolutely dynamic. Certainly we're in a period of difficult growth, particularly in China, and particularly around the world. But irrespective of that, this remains a dynamic region. And if I look at the demographic trends, if I look at the intra-Asia trade and investment growth over the next few years, that dynamism promises to continue to be with us. And I think another couple of points was the beauty of the city. I think if Hong Kong were located in the Midwest, we would all need periodic counseling each week because of the fast pace that we're talking about. But in reality, surrounded by the water, the mountains, the hiking trail, the beaches, and all of this within a 10-minute taxi ride of where we're sitting today, it's a city that marries urbanness and country in a way that I have not seen in any other city. And I would say, if I look back at the evolution of the city, the city, at the end of the day, is a reasonably new city in terms of great cities. Tokyo, centuries, London, etc. Hong Kong is much, much more recent than that. And I think because of that, it's continuing to grow and develop. And this arts and culture side is really not something that I would have said was a big feature of the city 25, 30 years ago. Whether it's the Sotheby's and Christie's space, you see the Sotheby's space, many of you have come through the building. That is a world first for Sotheby's in terms of having this degree of exhibition space, very available to the public. Whether it's Art Basel, whether it's the ongoing auctions, let alone now M+, which features one of the world's best contemporary art collections from China. This, I think, has added allure to the city. So financial services, absolutely fundamental, general business city, but I think this arts and culture and indeed the culinary things, what continues to make this city a very livable one.
Yep. Thank you for that, John. And that's a good segue into my next question, which you've all started working at Hong Kong at different time periods. And so I'd like to hear, how has the business environment in Hong Kong changed or developed since you started working and to now? And Margaret, I'll start with you.
Oh, right. Well, I'm not going to tell you when I start working, but I would say that I think pre-1997, I think most of Hong Kong businesses would be very focused on working with our mature markets, so North America, Japan, Europe, and so on. So because we also started off as manufacturing based, so that means that they're looking for markets for their merchandise, and so these would be the obvious markets. But then as Hong Kong also developed, we go more into services. And then services will give us also a support of other things that goes with it. So it's not just about manufacturing, it's about investment linked to trade. And so then we developed into financial services because when mainland China opened up, we first moved the manufacturing over. And then we see that when mainland China companies, they are then big enough, they also want to go overseas to expand. And then they look to Hong Kong, whether it is for the financial services, for the professional services, our very efficient logistics services, those all go together. So the legal, the accounting, everything, they all go together. And so we have seen Hong Kong actually moving from more manufacturing to then services. But then we are now more looking out. And of course, we also bring in via Hong Kong into the rest of the region. So you will hear this word over and over again, I'm sure, when you're in Hong Kong, super connector. That is what Hong Kong is. And that is what we continue to be. But we have changed. Before, it was us finding the manufacturing base for people from Hong Kong to move to when we first started. Then it was finding the professional services and the financial services and all the related services to help them export somewhere else. Then it's helping mainland China to then export via us to the rest of the world. Then it's Southeast Asia also doing the same via Hong Kong to the rest of the world. So every time Hong Kong does its part, it will be connection, bringing people together, and in the process, adding value, whether it is the financial services, as John said, which is our clear strength, our connectivity, our good location, and also our rule of law. I think it is our clear, transparent regime that gives people the confidence to work with Hong Kong and through Hong Kong with the rest of the world. So I see that our role has always been the super connector, but it's connecting perhaps different people, different parts over the years. And now I think everybody is very focused on startups. And I have to say here that I know Hong Kong may not be top of your mind when you think about innovation and technology, but Hong Kong is definitely also doing our part. And we have been welcoming startups from Canada and around the world to Hong Kong. So I see that's how Hong Kong has evolved over the time I've been working.
Thank you, Margaret, for that very comprehensive answer. Johnny, do you have anything to add or any comments on what Margaret said?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Margaret hit it exactly what my family is like. Because during the early 70s, my family is in manufacturing, and they have moved their plants once China opened up. And we are one of the earliest manufacturers moving from Hong Kong to mainland China. Through that period, that we pick on the growth of China, and eventually we have moved on to more products, licensing, IP, etc. So those are the changes that we see. And at that time, during the 90s, when I arrived in Hong Kong, mostly we are being invited by mainland governments at that time to invest in China. So we bring in our expertise, our funding, our connection into mainland during the 90s. But things have changed, and nowadays you see a lot more large corporations from mainland, from SOE to SME in the mainland. What they're looking for is through Hong Kong as a platform to work as a partner to the rest of the world. We still have a very well connected to TTC, of course, and we are a partner all over the world. And a lot of this mainland company, they are very interested to work with Hong Kong company because of our experience and the connections that we have. I think this is exactly why a lot of mainland companies have opened up their headquarters, in Hong Kong for various reasons. But I think this is one thing that we see the changes throughout the decades. The way I see it is what we can do in Hong Kong is to accept many countries, people that just now Margaret mentioned startup. This is something that we've been doing. Recently I was in Toronto, in Montreal as well. What we have done is to bring in a lot of the startup company to Hong Kong In the past, we have companies, some coming from Hong Kong or mainland, they want to start up company. They want to expand their exposures. So we bought them internationally, and Canada was the top destinations. But recently, we see the trend has changed. A lot of the startup in Canada, they're looking for alternative other than the United States. They want to explore Asia, and we try very hard to convince them, invest in them, invite them to come to Hong Kong to see how Hong Kong can help them to do business within the regions. So there's something that we see the new trend is coming.
And thank you. John, your perspective on this.
I'd say if I start with the things that have not changed, and I would say what has not changed, what is the same today as was, say, 20, 25 years ago, is very much Hong Kong, great free flow of capital, great free flow of people, capability, great free flow of information and ideas. I think this is Hong Kong even more so today, given the fact that the city has grown significantly, even in terms of population and diversity of that population over these past sort of 25 years. I would say what has changed is, I remember coming to Hong Kong initially. I was coming from Jakarta. I was the only person in any room that had lived in Jakarta when I arrived in Hong Kong. And I was initially a director of Mandarin Oriental. And so Mandarin Oriental, we were developing an international luxury brand. And at the time, the United States, New York, Miami, London, and Paris were immensely important in terms of building a luxury brand. Everyone else was going to China. They were making more money, I think, but everyone else was going to the mainland. And I think now, the community, the business community, the government in Hong Kong is now realizing that the great opportunity of the city is to look south equally as looking north. At Jardines, we began looking south probably about sort of almost 25 years ago in all seriousness. And at the time, again, we were very much in the minority. I think today, based on recent trips, I think you've been on, Margaret, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, all feature significantly. And I think that's an excellent opportunity for Hong Kong going forward. The demographics of places like Indonesia make for a really interesting economy. And I think there's a lot of ideas. We were saying, Johnny, mainland companies coming out and taking their business models, taking their capability in other places. And we have joint ventured, I was speaking with our partner Ernest earlier this morning. We have joint ventured with a Hong Kong company called WeLab. WeLab, very much a Hong Kong growing financial services company. Very much, I suppose, building their expertise, their market proposition in China writ large. We have now a joint venture for a digital bank in Indonesia. Indonesia, we bring knowledge of the country. We bring all the consumers. We have a 55% market share in automotive and financial services that backs that up. So lots of consumers. And so it's a great Hong Kong meets Indonesian story, this 50-50 joint venture to build one of Indonesia's great digital banks.
Thank you. I think Canada's doing the same sort of thing. We have an Indo-Pacific strategy where we're focusing very much on the Indo-Pacific. We've just opened an office in Fiji. We've introduced an agricultural office in Manila. We're opening embassies in Laos and Cambodia. So I think the thinking along those lines is quite common, both from the business and the government point of view. I guess one thing I think I'd like to ask the three of you, because you have very varied experiences when it comes to the Hong Kong market and different views. What are some words of advice that you would give to newcomers to the region? And, or maybe, sage words of advice of experience for people who have been with companies that have been here for 100 years. And I'll start with you, John.
Maybe a few thoughts. First, I think persistent and consistent. This is a market, and it probably differs from no other new market. But I think particularly in Asia, where relationships are important, and yes, you can develop them quickly, but you're going to be taken seriously if you're coming consistently and you persist. You can't come for a few days and expect to create a magnificent business. You need to, yes, plan to come many times, get to know people, build relationships, come day or month after month, year after year. And I think equally, the world is a particularly interesting place at the moment. It promises to be a particularly volatile place, even more volatile going forward than we've seen over the past few years. And I think that volatility is intimidating for us all as business people and indeed as individuals. But I think it's important to look past that volatility, to keep eyes on the horizon of the business opportunity and again, persist. There can be good days, there will be good days, there will be bad days, but I think coming regularly, expecting to work very hard at building a business is I think, why Jardines has been in business since 1832.
Thank you. Margaret?
I would say that when you are here, and completely agree with John, that you have to come here. Learning it overseas through Zoom or whatever is not quite the same. You have to be here to feel the pulse of the place. But what is important is, in Hong Kong, I think many people are very open and accessible. So don't be afraid to ask questions, to reach out to as many different networks as you can possibly know. Of course, starting, there's the consulate, there is the Canadian Chamber, there is TDC, there is Invest Hong Kong. There are many different organizations that are just here ready to help. But you have to go to them and let them know you are here, and you just ask. I have always have people talking to me from overseas saying that in Hong Kong, it's actually quite easy to actually have access, whether it's to the government, to all the statutory body, to almost anybody, because in Hong Kong, people are very efficient and very business-like in a way. We are always said that we don't smile enough, so that's why I'm smiling more, just to make up for the many times that maybe you haven't seen people smile. So, but we are very focused on getting things done, and we want to help you succeed. So it is very important for you to be here repeatedly and every time to reach out to different big organizations who can then point you to different directions and also brief you on the many support that we can provide to you.
I suspect that's particularly true today, sort of in the sort of when the stock market was reaching its heights, sort of everyone was way too busy. But I think the merit of really sort of putting in the seeds today is that you're really well supported.
Yes, and if I may just add one more point, because I said we have 51 offices around the world, so if you're going to Southeast Asia, we have 7 offices there, and if you're going to the Greater Bay Area, that you will also hear a lot about, we actually have business support centers on the ground in each and every of those 9 cities to make sure that even if there is not a TDC office there, you will be given on-the-ground support. So this is what we do. We want to provide practical support. So the only thing you need to do is come to us and let us know what you need. So don't be afraid to ask. Just ask. Even if we don't smile, we really welcome you. Okay?
Margaret, I think you're right. I think in-person relationships are important, and I'm turning this way as Brian did, because I forgot that we did have this view. Hi, Annie. How are you? And Janet. And as someone who's a bit of an extrovert who found, the time during COVID very, very difficult and having to do everything over Zoom, this period of post-COVID and I guess re-engagement of in-person communications, traveling and talking to the people that you want to do deals with or that you've had long-term relationships but haven't seen in 3, 4, 5 years, it's good to touch base in person. But Johnny, I've not given you an opportunity to comment on the question. Would you like to add a few remarks?
I try to be more. I try to smile a bit now. I feel like very intense. It's like I don't even know what to do with my face now. It's like,
It creates wrinkles.
yeah, I'm terrible with Zoom. I'm just keep this smile. I feel unnatural. But anyway, just now we talked about coming into Hong Kong as a startup or taking Hong Kong as opportunities to start your business. Well, I always see this, because I start my own business. I always consider sky's the limit, so just go ahead and try it. You never know how to, what life is like, It's a box of chocolates, right? So got to try it. But Hong Kong make the most compared to other cities. As I think Margaret have mentioned as well, it's a talent. Especially if we're coming from Canada, there's a huge Canadian population in Hong Kong. That's one thing. They know your cultures. They understand Hong Kong. You can hire those people, to be your partners or staffs. They understand the culture. That's very important to me. And also, working in Hong Kong, the transparencies, the rule of law, the accounting system, all that is so easy to maneuver. You don't have to go through different departments just to get different stamps for certain things. Everything is in order, and you can get things done quickly, and the decision making can be fast. I think that's create another monster like us. So we move really fast and etc. But that's the gist of business. We work very efficiently, and I think coming into Hong Kong. And also, you can find a lot of similarity. You can find a lot of partners. They are in line with what you're thinking as well. You can have a lot of exchange. I think those are very important factors to start a business.
And thank you. I'm cognizant of the time, and I want to give us an opportunity for people to ask questions. But I just one quick question for the panel before we open up for questions is if you had a crystal ball, what would be some priorities or opportunities in the short to medium term that you think that people should consider? And I'll start with Margaret this time.
Yeah. Okay. I think healthcare, that's wellness as a whole, that's a really big thing. I think post-COVID, everybody is very focused on it. And of course, I'm sure you're aware of the aging population in our parts of the world. So anything to do with health tech, med tech, or even supplements, which Canada, the pharmaceuticals, and all of that would have a lot of opportunities. The second one is green, obviously, because the whole world is looking at sustainability, and everybody is trying to build smart cities. Just Indonesia alone have over 100 smart cities planned, and they're all coming to Hong Kong to look for maybe the financing, maybe the technology, the professional services, to do the risk management, to do the due diligence, and so on and so forth. So when you are in Hong Kong, you are actually in the center of those opportunities because the mainland cities come to us, the Southeast Asian companies come to us looking for those solutions. And I think the third one would be in general, anything that is tech-related. I don't want to steal Johnny's answer because I know tech is going to be his thing. So I'll leave it to him to talk about. Because I think going forward, everybody is trying to be thinking about the benefit of the earth and the future generations, in addition to making, of course, good business and profits. So anything in this area, from green finance to technology to professional services, to help us meet those means, there will be huge opportunities. As I say, Hong Kong, mainland China, and Southeast Asia, that's already well over 2 billion market.
Johnny.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Margaret. well, we basically stole some of it already, but just for the sake of this talk, I was, as I said, I recently was in Canada, and we are in talk with a company. They are one of the largest education technology company in Canada, and we've been in a lot of discussions and hoping to bring them to Hong Kong to set up their Asia HQ, and hopefully then cover the regions. And through the process, what we have discovered is there's a lot of misunderstanding, or should I say there's a lot more promotion that we need to do to let people from Canada, companies in Canada, that they understand what's going on in this region, particularly in Hong Kong. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings during the past, I guess. Hopefully, that is something that we can move forward and business focus and market focus. And for us, even we talk to them, and they are very keen. It's just a matter of understanding how to penetrate in the regions. I think those are the things that we definitely will get a lot of more support from the Invest Hong Kong or TDC in that matter to try to persuade and in a sense to answer all those questions that they have in that capacity.
John.
I mean, Charles, it's a very broad question you ask, I have to
Intentionally.
say. And I think if I were sitting in Canada, having created a successful business in Canada, I think I would be looking to how to leverage that. And I think the homework is looking at each and every significant market. I think you need to divide Asia into markets. And then if you're moving into the region, you need to be very much focused on where population centers are. And I think that's going to, the opportunities ahead is going to vary hugely business by business. At Jardines, I think we are very much focused on both healthcare, particularly in Southeast Asia, and this issue of sustainability. I think this issue of sustainability really promises to be a very fertile ground generally over the next 5 to 10 years. What's happening in North America, really south of the border to Canada, is I think sending a very sort of mixed picture on sustainability and some of the business models that are meant to be addressing things like waste recycling through to renewable energy. I think Asia, many countries in Asia, is the reverse. I think people are very much leaning in to these issues. Waste to energy, some interesting companies I've seen. Renewable energy is really challenging in certain parts of Asia. In Vietnam, we have a business that's very well established from rooftop solar through to some hydro. In Indonesia, one of our investments in 2024 was in geothermal. And geothermal has some promise in Indonesia, but I would say, particularly as compared with Europe, many countries in Asia are a bit further back, and therefore, if there are relevant business models here, I think it's a big opportunity.
Oh, thank you. I see we have 6 minutes and a bit left, so we'll open the floor to questions. I'm not sure who's handing out the mic, so I'll wait to the first person to have a mic to say something.
My name is Thomas Wong. I'm thinking about expanding new Canadian business via Hong Kong into the region. And when we think of Canada, we think of the nice people, the beautiful landscape, sceneries, and also Indigenous Canadians. So my question is about art and culture of Indigenous Canadians. How can we bring and capitalize and commercialize the Indigenous art and culture into the region? I mean, here at CG, you can tell us a bit about the Canadian, Indigenous Canadians. And Margaret, with her TDC, they do a lot of licensing show, the most important licensing show, and a lot of IP platforms. And John, you have a lot of properties which provide space for display. And Johnny, you are the one going to pay for all this?
Well, that was a very comprehensive question, and you sort of partially answered for each and every one of us. I'll take the Canada side of the question first to say that, you know, Canada does take cultural industries very, very seriously, and I'll do a little EDI plug here as well. I missed the last half of the leadership panel, but one thing that I would have asked the leadership panel is, you know, EDI is as a leadership strategy, you know, championing women as in leadership roles, also championing Indigenous people, and doing that through arts and culture is one way of championing EDI, and EDI is just such an important business strategy nowadays. And I think it's very important that if you're a serious company who wants to do business anywhere, you need to have some sort of EDI strategy, because especially as I understand it, you know, if you're a demographic under 30, that's a really important consideration for your work environment, and you'll have, you know, younger people not want to work for your company if you're not an inclusive company, if you don't have an EDI strategy, if you're not championing women, if you're not championing, you know, people who've traditionally been marginalized or sidelined in other ways. So, you know, that's a way to attract employees. So I'll turn the question to, I guess I'll turn to John about what do you think about culture industries, but more specifically Indigenous culture.
I'm a trustee of an organization called the Asia Cultural Council. And the Asia Cultural Council is about arts exchange in basic terms. But I think my observation from the Asia Cultural Council is that culture and arts is very similar to business in the sense it's all about building and accessing communities. I think it's making the right connections in Hong Kong to provide the right connections into Indonesia, to take an example, to provide the right connections into the Philippines, because I think by tapping into like-minded individuals, you begin to see the communities and their understandings of the communities and where the opportunities are going to be. I think it's tapping into the arts and communities indigenous to Asia, I think is a good starting point.
Margaret.
Thomas has already mentioned we have platforms like the licensing show, but I think one of the things is you will first have to introduce it to Hong Kong people because they may not be fully aware of Indigenous art and culture. So one of the things that we can certainly welcome the consulate to do is every year we have a book fair, and it is a very well attended fair with about 1 million visitors. And there we have a world of art and culture where we are inviting all the different consulates to help us just showcase the culture from your country that you want to introduce to Hong Kong people and all the visitors who come to our book fair. I think that is perhaps a first stop. After that, of course, if they are developed, you can go to the licensing show. But also, we have great platforms, like John mentioned. We have Art Basel. That is also, we also have Canadian galleries that are taking part in that. So that is another way to do it. And I feel that it is all about introducing them first to Hong Kong people. And Hong Kong people are very curious people. They are very interested and open-minded, thank you, so that we want to learn about new things and to learn about culture, art and culture, and also food is one of the first ways to get people interested in a country and wanting to know more about it. So we will certainly welcome and work with the consulate to hope to bring some of that to our event soon.
Johnny.
I don't know what I'm paying for. It's like maple syrups or like salmons. Like what I'm paying for, it's like Thomas. I'm not sure. But anyway, joking aside, we have actually I find what's it called? A charity that are focused in cultural cultural and art related like programs. Something that I put a pride to it. And we have organized events and cultural exchange through throughout the regions, not only in Hong Kong. Actually, I do it quite a lot in Southeast Asia. Haven't done anything in Canada yet, but I will look into it if possible, bring in Canadian art and culture through this platform to demonstrate or exhibit to different parts of the world. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, well, I tell you that Canadian Indigenous art and culture is very diverse and rich, and certainly something that I think if you haven't been exposed to it, you should be. I'm very aware of the flashing red, white, and people in the sidelines waving their hands at me. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of you for listening to us. Thank you, John, Margaret, and Johnny, for participating in the panel. I really appreciated your thoughts and insights. I'm so pleased that you could take the time today to join us for this. It's a very important event, and your generosity and time and your sharing of knowledge and your thoughts is very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.